The fall of the Vanderbilt family is perhaps the most brutal story of a fall from the top to the bottom in all of American history. It all began in the early 19th century, when most people believed that you had to be born into a wealthy family to have any chance of becoming rich. Cornelius Vanderbilt, known as the Commodore, proved them wrong. Raised in a poor family, he rose, literally, from nothing, turning a small ferry into a huge shipping and railroad empire that spanned the eastern United States. At one point, his control over key railroad lines was so great that he could influence the prices of goods and the speed at which people traveled between states. In the mid-19th century, Cornelius and his family moved to Manhattan, to a house on Washington Place in what is now Greenwich Village, a neighborhood that is still among the most expensive in New York City. In 1877, however, the Commodore was confined to his home, his body failing after decades of relentless business battles. At the time of his death, he had amassed over $100 million, which today is equivalent to over $3 billion. His son, William Henry Vanderbilt, often called Billy, inherited his fortune and managed to double the family's wealth in just 8 years, leaving behind about $200 million when he died in 1885. This achievement made him one of the richest people in American history. To put this into perspective, William Vanderbilt earned about $10 per minute at the height of his career, which is a staggering amount even by today's standards. Unfortunately, however, he would be the last Vanderbilt to bring significant profits to the family business. When Billy died, most of his wealth went to his two eldest sons. The first was Cornelius Vanderbilt II. Unlike his father, Cornelius II did not increase the family fortune. He was known for his generosity, helping others, and enjoying life instead of focusing entirely on business. Next was his brother, William Kissam Vanderbilt, who, strange as it may seem, was more interested in horses than in increasing his wealth or managing companies. In 1875, he married Alva Erskine Smith, which later proved to be a very costly mistake for him and his inheritance. Alva was a woman who loved luxury and money, so much so that she made her husband William build 9 estates, buy her a private yacht, and throw countless extravagant parties. Despite all this, she was still not satisfied. She wanted something that money in the US could not buy, a real European title. To achieve this, she set her sights on marrying her daughter Consuelo to an aristocrat, and this is where Charles Spencer Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough. It is commonly believed that royal marriages are romantic fairy tales, but the truth is that Consuelo and the Duke barely knew each other, and neither of them particularly wanted this marriage. Nevertheless, both were under pressure. Alva craved royal status, and the Duke needed a financial injection to save his declining estate. Nevertheless, contrary to everyone's expectations, the marriage between Consuelo and the Duke lasted 26 years, surprisingly long, considering that neither of them wanted it. Even more surprising, however, is that Alva asked her husband William for a divorce even before their daughter's wedding. At that time, divorce was almost unheard of in the wealthy and influential circles in which they moved, so Alva's action was quite bold. The two eventually separated, and William remarried. He moved to France, where he continued to maintain his expensive collection of horses. But there was also George Washington Vanderbilt II, the youngest brother, who had big ideas and determination. He wanted to make a name for himself and secure his legacy, even if it meant spending his entire fortune. George bought 125,000 acres, or 500,000 acres, of land in North Carolina, on which he decided to build a 250-room house, which, to put it in context, had to be about the size of 3 football fields combined. This made it the largest house in America, and even today, Biltmore Estate remains the largest private home in the country. Building and maintaining such a colossal structure was not cheap. The costs took a huge toll on the Vanderbilt fortune, and maintaining the house was a constant challenge for George and his wife Edith. But in 1914, tragedy struck. George died unexpectedly during a routine appendectomy. Suddenly, Edith was left alone and had to manage this huge estate, taking on enormous financial responsibility. They say desperate times call for desperate measures, and in 1930, at the height of financial difficulties exacerbated by the Great Depression, Edith's daughter decided to open the Biltmore estate to visitors to generate much-needed revenue. If you think it's difficult to manage a multi-million-dollar family fortune, imagine doing so while gambling away a large portion of it and earning a reputation as a scandalous playboy. Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt, the son of Cornelius Vanderbilt II, had a reputation that, to put it mildly, did not inspire admiration. His wild social life led him down a dangerous path. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, there is something you should know about his brother, Cornelius Vanderbilt III, or Neely as he was known. Neely was one of those sons who spent lavishly just to maintain his image in high society. He constantly tried to live up to the Vanderbilt name. He fell in love with Grace Wilson, but, as often happens in wealthy families, with love came complications. His father opposed their relationship so vehemently that Neely and Grace eloped and got married. His father's anger was so great that Neely was disinherited, which meant that when the family fortune was divided, he would receive only $500,000. In stark contrast, his brother Alfred received a staggering $70 million, of which he subsequently gave $6 million to Neely. Despite his wealth, Alfred seems to have been the only one with a relatively sober mind. He was not a scandalous heir who squandered his fortune. On the contrary, if you are looking for an example of heroism in the Vanderbilt family, Alfred exemplifies it in a way that is difficult to forget. In 1915, he boarded the Lusitania, a huge ocean liner bound for Liverpool, but a German submarine torpedoed it off the coast of Ireland. As the ship sank rapidly, Alfred gave his life jacket to a frightened mother with a baby and remained on deck. Over 1,000 people died that day, including Alfred. It can be said that his selfless act ranks him not only among the bravest of the Vanderbilt family, but also in the pages of history as a whole. But while Alfred is praised as a hero, the Vanderbilt financial saga enters a new, even more uncertain phase. The family was growing rapidly. The number of heirs multiplied with each new generation, which meant that the huge sums had to be divided into more and more parts. The new generations showed little interest in running the family business. As a result, the once enormous fortune began to shrink. In addition, the Vanderbilts' wealth came mainly from the railroads, but in the 1930s, America was changing rapidly. Cars and airplanes were gaining popularity, and railroads were losing ground. It was then that the Great Depression dealt a crushing blow from which the Vanderbilts never recovered. Let's return to family problems. Reggie Vanderbilt's reckless gambling and drinking take their toll. When he died, his own fortune was almost wiped out. His wife and daughter, both named Gloria, were left with little money. And since Reggie's wife was not born into the Vanderbilt family, she could not count on financial support from the Vanderbilt Fund. To make matters worse, Reggie's sister, Gertrude, was granted custody of his daughter Gloria, a case that many still refer to as the trial of the century. This refers to the high-profile custody trial in New York in 1934, in which the aunt, sculptor, and patron Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney sued the mother, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, for custody of 10-year-old little Gloria. After 7 weeks of sensational press coverage with accusations of neglect and the mother's immoral lifestyle, Judge John F. Carew awarded custody to the aunt, with the mother receiving limited weekend visitation rights. Little Gloria's life was turbulent. Deprived of her mother's true love and with an emotionally unavailable aunt, she had to rely on her nanny, who became the mother she needed. These difficulties from early childhood shaped Gloria's future in a way that no one expected. She was not content to sit back and live off her wealth, but decided to create her own. At the age of 15, she began working as a model and, without intending to, became a pioneer in the fashion world. Even before designer jeans became popular, she and a designer friend created ultra-tight jeans with her signature and a swan logo on the pocket. These jeans became a huge hit and changed the fashion industry forever. Her personal life was just as turbulent as her career. After 3 marriages, she finally settled down with White Emery Cooper, with whom she had 2 sons. For 15 years, it seemed that she had found the right partner, but life had other plans. Cooper died unexpectedly on the operating table at the age of 50, and the tragedies did not end there. In 1988, her 23-year-old son Carter shocked everyone by jumping from their 14th floor apartment in New York. It was a devastating blow for Gloria. Her other son, Anderson Cooper, made his own way through hard work and determination. Unlike many others who grew up with trust funds, Anderson was warned by Gloria early on that he would not receive easy money from the Vanderbilt fortune. Speaking of the family's wealth, can you believe that in 1973, when the family gathered for a reunion, none of them were millionaires anymore? The wealth that once made them the richest family in America had completely disappeared. One of the main reasons was that the heirs forgot the important lesson that wealth does not come on its own. The Commodore made things easy for his heirs, but he did not teach them how to stay rich. Instead of expanding the family business or creating new sources of income, the Vanderbilt descendants became known for their extravagant parties, expensive horses, luxury yachts, and endless spending. They lived lavishly for about 100 years, but without serious financial discipline, their wealth quickly melted away. It was further reduced by inheritance taxes, the Great Depression, and the decline of rail transport. What do you think they could have done differently? Who do you think is to blame for this brutal decline? Share your opinion in the comments. Did you know that there are dynasties that come to an end in a much more shocking way? Such is the story of the last Russian Tsar and the Romanov dynasty. You can follow the story of the horrific end of this dynastic rule in the video on the left.